Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto Uzumaki chose love over the Hokage's hat, and became the missing Hokage, Naruto times Hinata times Sakura times Ino times Tenten times Tamari times Anko times Kurenai times Tsunade times Shizune times Yugito, Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Kakashi and Pakun stood in the rain overlooking the damage of the brutal battle. Before them lay the two combatants, both hurt and unconscious. Pakun ran to Naruto's side, since he could smell more blood from him, and found a sizable hole in the blonde's gut. The red chakra gathered around the area of the wound seemed to be trying to repair the damage, but even it was struggling to keep him alive. Kakashi, this is bad. You need to get Naruto back quick, Kakashi. The dog turned to see his summoner crouched over the other fallen fighter, even though it was clear he wasn't as badly damaged, and had probably only passed out from exhaustion. But Kakashi still hoisted the Uchiha onto his back and went to leave. Kakashi, where are you going? But it was too late, the scarecrow nin was gone. Pakun put his ear to Naruto's chest, where he could still hear a faint heartbeat. Hold on kid, I'll need help to get you back, the pug thought as he let out a series of short howls as loud as he could. Kakashi, you'll have a lot to answer for when the boss hears about this. Naruto was standing in the maze of sewers again, but it seemed darker than before, and the water level was lower. He slowly began to make his way through the maze to his eventual destination, his head hung low. Soon, the boy stood in front of the large cage door, and the great beast that lay within. I hope you're grateful, brat, this little stunt of yours has left your life in the balance, with only my power keeping you alive, the fox growled, and even my power may not be enough, if someone doesn't find you soon, we may still die. What in the seven hells were you thinking? Why didn't you kill the traitorous bastard when you had the chance? You could have easily taken him down, so why? Naruto just sat down and mumbled something the Biju could barely hear. The fox was a little shocked, and took a minute to recover. What was that? The shinobi lifted his head and looked to his tenant, tears on the edges of his soulful and sad eyes, because I promised Sakura-chan, and I would rather die than break my word. Kit, you only promised to bring him back, you didn't say he would be alive. The boy shook his head. Even if I didn't say it, it's what I meant, so, to me at least, killing Sasuke would be the same as breaking the promise. The fox just stared at him for a few moments, before a loud laughter filled the room. You know, Kit, for hating me so much, you really act like you are one of my kin. Naruto's head dropped, staring at the floor. Great, now even a demon thinks I act like a demon. Don't act so down, Kit, it's a compliment. Besides, acting all sad isn't like you, a new, softer voice said. Naruto looked up to see someone new in place of the fox, a woman who was a little taller than Tsunade, with pale, unblemished skin and long, light red hair that reached down far enough to cover her and genitals well enough, but that didn't keep Naruto from staring. The woman chuckled. You know, I think it's impolite to stare, Kit. Naruto shook his head before jumping to his feet, pointing at the woman and yelling, "Wah, what the hell? What's going on? Who are you and where the hell are your clothes?" Now that's the gaki I'm used to, the woman smiled as she snapped her fingers. In an instant, her hair was back in a braid, and she had on a blood-red set of furs, the top barely containing her endowments and the skirt ending a few inches above her knees. And as to who I am, who else would be in your gutter of a mind, stuck behind bars? Q Kyubi, you're a woman. Since when? The redhead sighed. Since birth, Baka, my kind are natural shapeshifters, but I was born a natural female. She folded her arms. Those bastards in your puny village just assumed I was a guy. Their egos probably wouldn't have been able to handle the idea of a woman doing that much damage. Well, ya know, your fox voice sound like a man. Naruto pointed out, amazed he was having the most civil conversation he had ever had with the fox. That's only when I try to speak your human language, To other foxes I'm an unbelievable beauty, she said, giggling when she struck a pose like a pin-up girl. After a few moments, her expression became serious. Listen, Kit, we need to have a talk about a few things. Like what? I was kinda liking this conversation. It may be the longest you, or anyone, talked to me without threatening me. Kyubi shook her head. Yeah, that's one thing. I'm sorry about what you had to go through because of me. Naruto chuckled a bit himself. That's a bit strange coming from someone who tried to eat me when we had our first face-to-face. The fox smiled seductively and leaned forward against the bars of her prison, showing her jailer a generous amount of her cleavage. Well, give yourself a few years and I might want to eat you up again, over and over with your inhuman stamina. She started laughing when the blonde turned a bright red, but then stared up at the ceiling for a moment. Well, Kit, it seems we're in luck, someone's carrying you back to your village. Someone is helping me. Who is it? Did they catch Sasuke? Kyubi smiled. It's not who, but what. Sume Inuzuka dashed through the forest. Her son had been retrieved from only a few hours ago. She had been on patrol around the village when she heard the howls for help, and she took off with her partner, Kuromaru, and headed towards the source of the plea for help, but as she got about halfway there she was passed by a group of hounds going in the opposite direction at inhuman speeds. Sume took off to catch up, and when she got close enough she could see they were Kakashi's Ninken, but the large black one had an extra passenger that the small pug was keeping an eye on. Hey, is that Uzumaki? She called out when she got next to the pack. Most didn't pay attention, since they were more worried about their human charge and trying to get him to a doctor, but one golden-orange one, with long droopy ears that hung over his leaf headband, turned his attention to her. Yeah, that's the pup, and we need to get him back fast, he's hurt real bad. Where's Kakashi? I thought he went out to bring him back. This was answered with a unanimous growl from the Ninken. The little white one yelled, when I see that bastard again, I'm gonna bite his damn fingers off. The glasses-wearing dog barked, calm down, Shiba, we have to worry about the fox pup now, boss will probably want to deal with Hatake personally anyways. To say Sume and her partner were surprised would be an understatement. Ninken, even outside of the Inuzuka clan, were notoriously loyal. Kakashi would have had to do something serious to have these dogs baying for his blood. What happened? Sume dared to ask the pug who sat next to the boy. The pug's eternal frown seemed even deeper than usual as he looked to the clan head. Kakashi had us out to find Naruto and Sasuke. The dogs growled at the Uchiha's mention, but when I led him to them, I saw how badly Naruto was hurt. I tried to get Kakashi to help, since there was no way I could carry Naruto myself, but he was so worried about the Uchiha, who wasn't near as injured, that he didn't seem to hear me and he took off and left the kid there in the rain. I called out for help, which I assume is why you're here. The woman nodded and he patted the large dog he sat on. Luckily Bull here was closest and we were able to get going, but I am afraid the poor kid won't last much longer without medical help. At that moment, the only thing that rivaled Sume's anger at Kakashi was her worry for the young boy, but what about? The pug shook his little head. Even it seems to be struggling to keep him alive. We need to get him to Tsunade, and fast, he said as they neared the village gates. Sume could see the village gates, and could see a head of silver hair talking to a blonde woman, and when she could hear what the silver-haired scarecrow was saying, she let out a loud deep growl of her own, which was echoed by her partner as they dashed forward. Kakashi, you lying Sonova bitch, she thought as she closed in on the scarecrow, her fist raised, you disloyal, traitor helping little. Tsunade stood at the gates of Konohagakure, nervously awaiting the return of a certain blonde, and worrying like crazy. Naruto was the only member of the retrieval team who hadn't yet returned. Shikamaru and Kiba were fine, Akamaru was still down, but Kiba's sister was keeping a close eye on him, Shizune was operating on Neji, and Tsunade had just stabilized Choji, so now all she could do is wait for the young blonde to return. Knowing him, he's probably going to pass out the moment he steps through the gate, she thought, with a sad smile, just before she noticed movement in the distance. but her smile disappeared when she noticed a distinct lack of orange in the group. Kakashi landed with the medic Nin that had been following him for a short while, and allowed them to place Sasuke on a stretcher, and turned to his boss, Tsunade-sama, please, Sasuke needs help. Tsunade glanced over the Uchiha, he's fine, just minor lacerations and chakra exhaustion. She turned to the Cyclops with a worried look, but where's Naruto? Kakashi had to think fast. In his haste to help his prodigy, he had forgotten completely about the orange-clad teammate. Well, Tsunade-sama, I am sorry, but by the time I had arrived, he was too far gone. He saw tears forming in his leader's eyes. I am afraid he wasn't going to make it, so I took Sasuke for healing and so Naruto's last mission could be a success. By now Tsunade had tears flowing from her eyes. I am sorry, Tsunade-sama, but... Bastard! A woman yelled as a fist smashed into the side of Kakashi's head, propelling him into a wall, and leaving a small crater. As he slumped to the ground, Kakashi looked up to see Sume Inuzuka standing before him, and she looked pissed. Sume-san, what is this Abu-ao? Kakashi tried to raise his arm to defend himself, only to feel an extreme pain. He looked to see Kuromaru's jaws closing on his arm, before he heard a sickening crack, and the massive hound twisted his head and flung the Jonin into another wall, where Sume began to beat him again. Tsunade was caught off guard by the clan head's sudden assault, but before she could ask why, a small, gravelly voice spoke behind her. Tsunade, the kid needs help. She turned to see a pack of dogs carrying one of the few people she had left, and he was in bad shape. Kakashi's problem forgotten, Tsunade rushed to Naruto's aid, her hands glowing green as she placed them over his wound, tears still falling. Don't you even think of dying here, Naruto, or she couldn't even finish her threat, she just continued her healing, despite the screams of pain in the background. When she had stabilized him enough, she turned to the large black dog that carried him and summoned a pink slug, about the size of her head, and placed it on Naruto's chest. Tsunade-sama, how may I help you? I need you to monitor the boy's health and continue healing. She turned her attention to the dog, and I need you to get him to the hospital, I'll be right behind you. The large dog nodded and took off as fast as he could, while carrying the pug, the slug, and the boy, with the rest of the pack following, save for the smaller white one. For a moment Tsunade prayed before turning to the bruised and beaten mess that was Kakashi, with the angry dog woman almost ready to start in on him again. Sume, what is this about? Sume turned to her boss and scowled. The pug told me this bastard found both Uzumaki-kun and the Uchiha, and despite the pug's warning about Uzumaki-kun's condition, he still chose to help the traitorous bastard. He didn't even spare the pup a first glance, let alone a second. This bastard betrayed a loyal pup and tried to lie to you about it, and that pissed me off, so. Tsunade raised her hand to silence the younger woman and turned to the beaten Cyclops. Kakashi, she spoke in a voice dripping with venom, is this true? Kakashi could only whimper before Tsunade raised her foot and brought it down with full force on his crotch, driving him into the ground, screaming. Come on, Sume, I need to help Naruto. And the two women left with the large dog, leaving Kakashi with bad, but survivable wounds, but he was in incredible pain in front of his summon. Shiba, get help. The little white dog went to his side and peed on the Cyclops before leaving. What the heck are you talking about? Don't tell me a snake found me again. Last time it took weeks to get the smell of snake guts out of my clothes. Kyuubi chuckled. Don't worry, Kit, they're friends, even if they wouldn't be my first choice for rescuers, beggars can't be choosers. What do you mean not your first choice? Well, foxes and dogs have a bit of a negative history, but these ones seem worried about you, so it should be alright. Naruto was a bit relieved that something cared enough to help him. He sat down and noticed that the water was completely gone. Hey, Kyuubi. Yes, Kit, I have a question. This is like my soul, right? Since you're sealed here, she nodded. Then can you tell me why it looks like a freaking sewer? Kyuubi turned her back to him and leaned against her bars. In a way, it's because of me, because of the life you led. Despite what you want others to see, you're always in pain, you're afraid, you're scared, not knowing who to trust, afraid those who you think of as friends will leave you when they learn of me. Your mind is darkened with fear and it became this, but, believe it or not, this is better than what it used to be when you were young. It had already gotten better by the time you first came to see me since your life had gotten a bit better. Maybe before long, I will have some sunlight in here, or maybe a bit more space to run around. But even if it gets better out here, won't you still be sealed? Don't be so depressing, Kit. Besides, I've been trying to think of how I can get out without ending your life, but it's a no-go yet, she sighed. So, yeah, I would still be sealed, but that doesn't mean I can't go from a cage to a kennel, and have some room to stretch my legs. In that first endeavor, though, you could be of some assistance. She looked at his confused look. I mean, you can help me get out of this damn seal. What? If you think I'm gonna let you out just to smash up the village again, then you, Naruto yelled before Kyuubi silenced him with a glare. He could see anger in those eyes, but, for some reason, he could see pain. Naruto, she spoke softly, this is the truth. I don't want to go too far into the details, but that night I did not want to attack your village. I never had any love for them, and I hold even less than that after how you were hurt by them so much, but I had no reason or desire to attack them. I don't know who it was or why, but someone was controlling me. And you just expect me to believe some unknown person caused one of the most powerful creatures in the world to go on a psycho rampage? Kyuubi pouted. I'm hurt, Naruto, I have no reason to lie to you, and do you know what it does to my pride to know that there could still be someone out there who could control me, who can make me do what they want against my will? Kinda the way that pink-haired wench treats you. Hey, don't you start making fun of Sakura-chan. I'll insult whoever I damn well feel like, Gaki. Let me ask you something, do you know on average how many times that screw-loose little witch beats you in a given day? Between 10 and 15 times a day, and I'll tell you something else, not only would half of those beatings have put a normal person in a coma, but a few you've gotten from her would have killed you if not for me. Naruto was visibly shaken, but Kyuubi continued, I know for some reason, you care about that pink-haired little rat, but enough is enough, you need to either stay away from her or tell her to back the hell off. Naruto suddenly looked worse than when he had arrived, and the room suddenly got a bit darker. Sakura-chan tried to kill me, like all the rest of them. Kyuubi suddenly wished she had somehow been a bit more subtle. The last thing she wanted to do was drive her host into a deeper depression. Well, I wouldn't say that. She didn't do so on purpose. She just has a serious anger issue you should talk to her about, or have her see a shrink about. I think deep down, very deep down, she might care about you, but she has been too blinded by her desire for the Uchiha to see the damage she caused, and you don't seem to be able to get around your little crush in order to see the way she acts, or to see the others who care about you. She said, thinking about the pale-eyed young teen that was obviously head over heels for the blonde. You seem to be worrying about a lot of things that don't really affect you, why? Kyuubi chuckled a little, I'll answer your question with one of my own. Do you really know anything about Kitsune? Naruto shook his head. Well, we have several traits that we take great pride in, one of the most important of which is our sense of honor. We are bound by our word, and while some may twist the meaning words, any fox that willingly breaks their promise or oath is considered an outcast at best and an enemy at worst. Like I said before, I truly am sorry about what you have been put through because of me. But what you have done today would raise any Kitsune's view of you. You took the more difficult route and almost died to keep your word, that with the strength of body and will you show almost every day, along with the fact that you aren't exactly bad looking either, would be enough to catch any vixen's eye among my people, and among most humans too. The only reason you don't have a fan club of your own is probably, once again, due to me and the adults of the village. It might not mean much, but I am proud of you. Naruto was about to say something else, but she raised her hand to silence him. Look, Kit, I know you might have some more questions, and I will answer them later, but I can guess from the outside sense and the repairs that were just made to your body, you are in or close to the village, and in the slug woman's care. You have been through a lot in the past day, and you should get some rest, okay? Naruto nodded. Come closer for a moment, she said. As he moved next to the cage, she grabbed him and pulled him into a hug, his head slipping in between the bars and onto her chest as she planted a light kiss on his forehead. Sweet dreams, kid, she said as his consciousness faded. Naruto woke to a familiar sight, a white-tiled ceiling, but there was something new that hadn't been in the room any other time he had been in the hospital. To his right, between the bed and the window, was a sleeping person, who looked like she had been there a while. She looked tough and a bit masculine, but without the heavy Jonin vest that hung on the back of the chair she sat on. She was nicely endowed, but had a good lean body. She had a feral look, with her wild, dark brown hair and the red fang marks on her cheeks, which reminded Naruto of Kiba. Maybe this woman was related. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted by a shuffling on the other side of his bed. He turned his head and suddenly locked eyes with what seemed to be a large, shaggy, one-eyed, black wolf dog. About time you woke up, pup. Naruto bolted up and yelled, a split second before he was pushed back to his mattress and the woman held him down, standing over him with a kunai in her other hand as she quickly surveyed the room. When she saw that there was no current threat, she looked down to the boy. What happened, Uzumaki-kun, are you alright? Before Naruto could answer, the dog let a strange high yipping, almost like laughter. My, Sum, you're rather protective of the stray, aren't you? Are you looking to adopt him, or looking to get a new litter out of him? The woman, Sum, muttered something like, stupid mutt, before she straightened up and put her vest back on before she turned to Naruto. Sorry, Uzumaki-kun, I heard you yell and assumed the worst, considering your past. My name is Sum Inuzuka, and the mud next to you is my partner, Kuromaru. Are you related to Kiba? How is he? How is everyone else? Was Sasuke caught? Calm down, kid. Yes, I am related to that little baka. Kiba's my son, and he's fine. Everyone else is fine. A couple of them were in critical condition, but you came out of it the worst. And yes, unfortunately, Uchiha Tem is back in the village. Your mission succeeded. You aren't happy Sasuke is back. Why? Where do I start? We Inuzuka never really got along well with the Uchiha to begin with. They were always pompous and stuck up. They cared only about power, no matter what they had to do to get it. They always felt like they were the best in the village. No, the best in the world, like we should have dropped to our knees every day to thank them for being in our village. The only Uchiha I ever met that I liked was the brat's mother, Makoto. My next problem is that this Sasuke is a spoiled, self-obsessed little punk who only cares about himself, and he tried to betray the village, and if there's anything an Inuzuka values, it's loyalty. That's why we never even tried to adopt him. We never trusted the Uchiha clan. I would rather have adopted you, but the damned civilian council wouldn't let me. You tried to adopt me. Why? And why wouldn't they? She just pointed to his stomach. Knowing he knew of the fox's presence, I tried twice. The first time Fugaku, Makoto's husband, said that putting you in such a savage and beastly clan might awaken the beast in you, and the second time the Bakas just said it was a bad idea to put foxes with dogs. She stopped and took a few deep breaths. I wanted you in my clan so I could help you. The Yondaime wanted you to be seen as a hero, and that's how I see you, and why I personally beat the tar out of any Inuzuka that was found to be participating in those fox hunts. And I gotta say, the fact that you still stay with this village after all that those idiots did to you shows how loyal you can truly be, and like I said, an Inuzuka values loyalty. Who knows, maybe I can still get you in my clan. My daughter, Hana, is first in line for clan head, and she'll need a mate before she can become alpha. I think you would be great in a few years, Sum said, smiling mischievously at Naruto's blush. I would rather you not try to marry him off without his approval, Sum. They both turned to see Tsunade standing in the doorway, arms crossed, with Shizune beside her, holding Tauntaun. Both of them had serious looks on their faces as they each walked to either side of his bed, as Naruto braced himself for a hit, and Tsume seemed ready to pull the Hokage off him, when the two women hugged him and the little pig hopped on his chest, nuzzling her snout into his chin. "Don't you ever scare me like that again, Gaki," Tsunade said with tears forming in her eyes. "Hey, Oba-chan, Shizune-chan, Taunton, I'm fine." "No, you're not fine, you almost died, and anyone else would have in your position." Yeah, I already got an earful from Kyuubi on that." Everyone's jaws dropped at that. Tsume asked, "You talked to him?" "Her. What?" Naruto chuckled a bit at the looks he was getting. "I said, her, I was surprised too, but Kyuubi is a woman, and she's really not that bad, once you get to know her." Shizune looked a bit worried. "Naruto, she tried to destroy the village. She says someone was controlling her. But how do you know she isn't lying? Kyuubi the most powerful Biju, how could someone just take control of her?" Tsunade thought for a moment. "It might not be so far-fetched. My grandfather was famous for being able to control a Biju's power, and Madara Uchiha was supposed to have some way to control them as well. I guess it could be possible some powerful genjutsu or new or unknown Kekkei Genkei could have done it." "Do you believe what she says, Naruto?" He nodded. "She's a bit weird, but she seems to be rather nice and friendly too. I'm pretty sure she was telling the truth." Tsunade sighed. "Well, this might be something I should have Jiraiya check into. If someone strong enough to control the Kyuubi wants to destroy the village, we should at least know who it is. For now, though, Tsume, it's about time for the council meeting, so you may want to get home and wash up. You've been waiting here for a while and quite frankly, you smell." Naruto looked confused. "Why did you have her looking after me for so long then, Obaa-chan?" Tsume softly smiled. "I was actually here on my own, kid," she said as she headed to the door. "I was worried about you. Believe it or not, not everyone has to be ordered to help you. So remember, if you need some help, a sparring partner, or maybe just someone to talk to, you can drop by my clan home, okay?" Naruto nodded. "Come on, Kuromaru." The dog waited at the door for a moment and turned his head to the boy. "Take care of yourself, pup, Tsume seems to really care about you." And the hound left. "Well, Naruto," Tsunade said, "we will have to get going soon, too, but I want you to get some rest, so I got a Jonin who was kind enough to volunteer some of her free time just to make sure you stay in bed, so behave yourself." "Okay, but who is it Obaa?" Naruto was cut off by a person jumping through the window, arriving. Kuromaru looked to his human partner as they closed in on their home. Tsume had been quiet the entire time as they leapt across rooftops, and usually she would strike up some semblance of a conversation, but not now. "Tsume, what's bothering you?" Tsume sighed. "I'm worried about Naruto-kun." "Why?" Tsunade-sama said he would be fine with some rest, thanks to his vixen friend. Kuromaru could accept the Kyuubi being a female, especially given the bitches he had encountered in his life, and was glad the pup was now on good terms with his tenant if it would help Naruto. "Yeah, I know, but that's not what worries me. I'm worried the council might be planning something. Despite the hero he really is, I just know the damn civilians and those old as hell bastards will try something to twist this entire situation in favor of the Uchiha and maybe give them a reason to do away with Naruto. You're really taking a liking to this pup, aren't you? What's not to like? He's a strong, loyal, caring, energetic little brat. He has stared death in the eye more than some Jonin. He just got the short end of the stick in life." Tsume was quiet for a moment. "I am thinking of giving that to him, what do you think?" Kuromaru smiled. "Or at least as much as a dog could. I think the pup has proven himself more than worthy." He thought for a moment. "Hey, were you serious about marrying him off to Hana?" Tsume thought for a moment, before shooting her partner a big, Naruto-like grin. "Are you kidding? With his personality, and that rumored stamina of his, the only thing keeping me away from him is the fact that Tsunade might just kill me for it." Naruto was backed up against the wall and shaking. "Why, you're that insane, blood-sucking exam proctor. Anko huffed as Tsunade bopped her fellow blonde on the head. Show some gratitude, Naruto. Anko volunteered to keep you safe and to keep an eye on you, even on her day off, as a favor, so don't just insult her like that. But Ba-chan, she really did suck my blood at the exams. Anko huffed again as she crossed her arms. I didn't sunk, I licked. Everyone's sweat dropped. Besides, you can't tell me you were scared of little ol' me after facing Scar-face Ibiki. Well, he would have scared me more if he drank my blood, Naruto said, shuddering at the image he just put in his own head. It was just meant to scare ya, Gaki, and you have to admit it worked. Naruto, Tsunade growled, stop arguing, the fact still stands that she volunteered her own free time to keep an eye on you, even without pay. Now I have to go to the council meeting, and she will make sure you stay here and rest. Let's go, Shizune. As Tsunade headed for the door, Shizune picked up Taunton, only to have the little pig squirm out of her grip and jump back on Naruto's bed and sat on his stomach, oinking defiantly. Shizune shook her head a bit. Do you mind if she stays with you, Naruto? When she gets like this, she's more stubborn than Tsunade. Naruto looked towards the Taunton, only to be greeted with a big pair of sad, puppy eyes that seemed on the verge of tears. Powerless against such a cute face, he sighed and patted her on the head. Why not? Taunton was ecstatic at his answer, and started rubbing her nose against his chin again. Shizune smiled and moved to leave the room, but stopped at the door. Please stay put, Naruto, you need to rest, and you don't want to worry me and Tsunade, do you? No, Shizune-chan. When Shizune left, Anko sat in the chair Sum had slept in and started picking at her nails with a kunai. Naruto spent a few minutes petting Taunton before he looked to Anko. Why? He almost whispered. Anko looked up. What was that? Why are you here? Obaa-chan said it is your day off, and you aren't paid, so why are you here? Almost instantly Anko's expression changed from the passively bored look she was wearing to a sad distant look. Can't you just accept someone was worried about you, Gaki? But why? We never met until the exams, and this is the longest we've ever talked. Let's just say, we are more alike than you realize. She began to balance the kunai with its point on the tip of her finger. Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a genin kunoichi who was orphaned when her parents died on a mission. She was taken as an apprentice by one of the strongest ninja in the entire village. She trained with him, learned from him, trusted him, cared for him, she even had a little crush on him. Then one day, out of nowhere, he says that they are going on a training journey. They left suddenly. Once in a while, they would stop at a strange place. He would start to include her in things, and have her assist in experiments on people that could only be described as twisted and inhuman. She helped him because he said that they were authorized by their cage. On some level, she knew that it was a lie, that the cage would never allow what she had seen and done, but she was blinded by her devotion. Anko's eye started to tear up a bit, but soon it became too much. She couldn't just turn a blind eye any longer, and when she started to speak out against them, he abandoned her. But Anko pulled the collar of her coat, revealing her curse mark, not before he left her with a parting gift. She suffered and screamed and cried for days because of that curse. When the pain began to leave her, she walked out of the room she was in, to find the entire building abandoned. She was alone. She eventually made it back to her village, only to find that she had been declared a nuke nin, and was arrested and interrogated the moment she got back to her village. Her cage believed her that she hadn't really known that her sensei had abandoned the village, same as he had done to her, but few others did. Many, both shinobi and civilians, saw her like she was no different from her former teacher, like she would soon restart his perversions against nature. At best she was insulted, at worst they would try to attack her, one even tried to rape her, but she was strong enough to defend herself, and that one man never did anything concerning that part of his body again. Naruto looked down at Taunton, whose ears had dropped with the mood. I'm sorry, I didn't know. This woman was like him, she knew the glares and hateful words that plagued their lives. Anko put on a sad smirk. No need to apologize, kid. In fact, I should be thanking you though. She saw his confused expression but continued. You see, the same idiots that don't see me for me are usually the same ones that don't see you for you. And it seems that they hate demons more than traitors. Usually when I was attacked, it was some drunken villager or a low-level chunin, opponents I could handle. A tear formed in her eye, but that's because the more organized groups and higher-level ninja were after you. Each hit you took was one I didn't have to. So I'm sorry. She wrapped her arms around the boy, her head on his shoulder, and thank you. Naruto smiled and hugged her back for a moment. You know what you can do to thank me. Anko released him. Aren't you a little young for that? Naruto tuned bright red. No, no, no. I was just wondering if you could get me some Ichiraku ramen. Ah, too bad. And she chuckled as a couple shadow clones popped up. What do you want? 3 beef, 2 chicken, and 4 miso, please. Oink oink. Naruto smiled at the pig. Make that 5 miso ramen. The clones jumped out the window to get the boy's order and the original tune to Naruto. Mind if I ask you a question now? He nodded. Why did you hold back? I've seen what you can do. You're stronger than most know, and with your furry friend, you should have been able to take the little bitch down easy. Kyuubi already yelled at me for that too. Anko raised an eyebrow. You, talk to it. Her. Naruto sighed. And I can, but only when I sleep, or get knocked out, and sometimes if I get thrown off a cliff. Anko suddenly burst out laughing. What's so funny? You called me crazy, and you're the one with voices in your head. It's just the one voice, Naruto replied. Anko doubled over, and took a few moments to calm down. Hehe, sorry, but you still didn't answer my question. Why did you let yourself get so beat up? Naruto's expression dropped as he looked to Taunton, who also had a curious look on her face as well, because, I promised Sakura-chan I would bring him back. I would have killed him if I went all out with that power. Sakura, you mean that pink-haired little Uchiha fanatic from your team? He nodded. So you almost died to keep a promise to an abusive, sad, sorry excuse of a kunoichi. Why? 'Cause I liked her. Liked. Well, I'm just not sure anymore. I still feel like she's real important to me, but I don't think she will ever see Sasuke for what he is. And Kyuubi was mad at me for liking her. She said that some of the times Sakura-chan hit me, tears formed in his eyes, that without Kyuubi she could have put me in a coma, or even killed me. That thought hurt more than what Sasuke did to me. Anko ruffled his hair a bit. Hey, it's her loss. You seem like a good kid. If I was a few years younger, but then, spending time with people like Tsunade, and Shizune, maybe you like older women. She laughed at his blush. I swear, if that little, pink-haired Uchiha tries anything, I do things to her that would make Ibiki puke and soil himself before passing out. Across town on a small bridge, Sakura Haruno sneezed as a chill ran through her very soul. What was that? It felt like someone walked over my grave. Hey, forehead. Sakura turned to see Ino running to her. What is it, Ino pig? They're back. Shikamaru's team is back. Come on, let's go, the blonde girl said as she dragged her friend to the hospital. When they got there, first thing Ino did was inquiring about her teammates, and headed off to Choji's room. Sakura asked to be taken to Sasuke's room. She got there to find a pair of Anbu guarding the door. She barely managed to look in the door, seeing Sasuke wrapped in a bunch of bandages and still out cold, before one of the Anbu, a cat-masked woman with purple hair, stepped in front of her. I'm sorry, miss, but by the orders of Hokage-sama, no one outside of hospital staff is allowed to visit the Uchiha until his trial. Trial? But he was barely gone a day, they're already gonna try him as a nuke nin. Yugo almost felt like bopping the girl. She knew of this teen and her actions to her teammates, especially towards her former charge, Haruno-san. Uchiha fled Konoha with the full intent of joining a known enemy, with the aid of enemy shinobi, directly and indirectly almost causing the deaths of your fellow Leaf Nin. Despite what leeway his family may have once had, he will go to trial. Furthermore, She added with a glare that sent chills through Sakura's spine. He's lucky his captor was so lenient. Had I been there, he would be missing a limb. What do you mean his captor? Naruto Uzumaki. He fought the Uchiha, almost losing his life, and knocked him out to be collected by another ninja. Sakura turned to head to see her blonde teammate, angry. I can't believe Naruto beat Sasuke-kun like that. Enko's clones arrived quickly, two carrying carry-out bowls of ramen and one had an armful of dango boxes. The original started chowing down, inhaling the dumplings almost as fast as Naruto did the noodles. Tantan's bowl sat on the floor as she ate at a much slower pace. When they finished, they began to talk and swap stories, Enko talking about some of her less classified missions, and Naruto about his better pranks and missions. You actually took out Kabuto. Even Kakashi Tem had trouble against him. Well, it was kind of a draw, we both went down, but I sent him right through a boulder. Enko was chuckling when she felt a vaguely familiar chakra signature approaching. Once she realized who it was, she turned to the blonde. Hey, I'll be right back, I have to use the John. She walked out and closed the door, and, after applying a quick soundproofing jutsu to the door, she immediately hid herself from sight. Moments later Sakura came walking down the hall and stopped at the door to Naruto's room, but before she could enter, she felt something wrap around her arms, legs and waist before she was slammed into the wall. Where do you think you're going, bitch? Sakura turned her head to see the exam proctor, with a bunch of snakes coming from her sleeve. I came to see my teammate, ma'am. Sakura was upset, but knew better than to anger a Jonin. Enko narrowed her eyes. Well, I don't think that's such a good idea. But, I'm his teammate, she said before one of the sakes on her arm hissed. Yeah, but you're also the reason he almost died, and someone who mindlessly abuses him. What, you think I didn't know? I'm gonna tell you something, wench, Naruto's more resilient than most Chunin, and if it weren't for that and his healing abilities, a few of those hits of yours would have killed him. Sakura looked shocked, and Enko raised her other arm, and a dark green serpent slithered out of her sleeve and rested its head on her palm. You see this little guy, he's what's called a black mamba, a type of snake that is extremely venomous. His venom will cause double vision, fever, paralysis, convulsions, coma, and then death, sometimes all within 15 minutes of the bite. In fact, there's a little saying about them. Do you know what the difference is between finding a tiger in the jungle and finding a black mamba? Sakura shook her head, too scared to speak. If you find a tiger, you might live to tell the tale. Enko gave the snake a quick peck on the head, then turned back to the teen. Now I want you to leave, and if I ever find out you caused that boy any harm, physical, mental, or emotional, again, I will have my buddy here pay you a late night visit. But. No buts you little bitch. That little guy in that hospital bed has been through hell time and time again, and almost died to keep that dumbass promise to you and bring your precious Uchiha back alive, when he could have easily killed the bastard. And he actually cared about you, and for some reason still does even despite your insults and abuse, but I'm not gonna let him put up with your crap any longer. The snakes released Sakura and she dropped to her knees. You're a pathetic excuse for a kunoichi, and until you change your ways, I don't want to see you near him. Now get the hell out of my sight. Sakura broke into tears and ran off. Enko just shook her head. Naruto will be mad if he finds out, but she needed a kick in the. She released the sound barrier and returned to her new friend in charge. Feel better, Enko Ne-chan. Enko flashed her mischievous grin and walked to his bed. Ne-chan. How about just Chan? It won't make me sound as old. Besides, she laid next to him and pulled close, putting his head on her chest. If I were your sister, this might be awkward. THWUMP. The two looked to the door to see Kurenai standing beside a passed out, twitching Hinata, with a small pot of flowers clutched to her chest. Kurenai picked the girl up and placed her in a chair, before turning to Enko and Naruto and speaking in a voice that was quiet, but promised a lot of pain if she got the wrong answer. Enko, what are you doing? Whatever do you mean? Nai-chan, Enko said, feigning innocence, Tsunade asked to keep a close eye on Naruto-kun, so I am. It looks more like you're keeping a close something on him, but it's definitely not your eyes. The red-eyed woman moved to the door. Naruto, would you stay here with Hinata for a few minutes? I need to talk to Anko, alone. And she left the room. Naruto just chuckled. Anko-chan's in trouble, he said in a sing-song voice. Oh, shut up Gaki, Anko grunted as she left the room behind her friend, closing the door behind her. When she sealed the door she turned to Kurenai. Look, Nai-chan, I was just having some fun with the kid, we were just playing. Kurenai was staring Anko down. Anko, I would prefer you not play like that with one so young. Please, he's old enough to get that close to death, he can do what he wants. Besides, Anko's face turned serious, you know how much I owe that kid in there. How many times did you help me get those bastards to back off me? Kurenai looked to the ground. That wasn't a subject she liked, but Anko continued, now imagine if the tougher bastards hadn't been busy with Naruto. I might not be here talking to you now. Anko, I know you feel you owe him, but you aren't the only one who cares about him, you know. Anko grinned, I could tell, the Hyuga seems to be hopelessly head over heels for the kid. But you know, she is kinda cute, and I don't mind sharing. The Genjutsu mistress sighed, Anko, I would like it if you didn't go around trying to corrupt my students. Excuse me. The two Jonin turned to see a blonde genin. Hello, Ino, can we help you? Actually, Kurenai-sensei, I was looking for Naruto's room, I wanted to check on him. Choji was pretty beat up and Shikamaru said Naruto's opponent was tougher than the others, and I heard he was really hurt. Anko finally recognized the girl, aren't you the one who got knocked out by the pink-haired wimp in the exams? Ino looked ticked off, but just answered with a nod, well, he was in pretty bad condition, but he's up now, though just to set you straight, the Uchiha brat is the one who put the Chidori hole in Naruto's chest. Ino was surprised as she followed the women into the room. From what she had heard, she thought that Sasuke had been kidnapped, but she learned the truth when she tried to visit him and the cat Anbu had told her the truth. First she was heartbroken that her crush had so willingly betrayed the village for the one who killed the Sandame, then she was just angry that he had almost caused her teammate's death, now she was just worried about her fellow blonde. She had heard he was badly injured from the Anbu, but had assumed it was from the sound nin. To hear that Sasuke had not only used the same jutsu she had seen punch through a solid wall of sand on a leaf nin, but on his teammate. Ino almost wished she could use some of her father's mind-altering jutsu on the Uchiha. Ino was more surprised, however, that the same blonde, still wrapped in bandages, was just sitting on a table petting a small pig with a bunch of empty bowls next to him, and acting like he was never injured. Hey, Ino, good to see you. Hey Naruto, how are you doing? I heard you were pretty badly hurt. Naruto just waved it off. Nah, I heal pretty fast. I'm only still here because Ba-chan has Anko-chan here making sure I stay put, and Taunton stay as well, didn't you? He said as he tapped the pig's snout playfully, getting a happy squeal in return. Ino chuckled a little at the scene. Like a father and a baby, she shook the thought from her head, why am I thinking of Naruto as a dad? Ino's thoughts were interrupted by a soft eep beside Naruto's bed. She looked to see Hinata was coming to in a chair she hadn't noticed. I guess she saw Naruto all banged up and fainted. Hey Hinata, you're awake, are you okay? Naruto asked in his usual cheery voice, seemingly forgetting that it was him who was in the hospital. Hinata turned her usual shade of red. Why yes Naruto-kun, I'm fine. Then she remembered the flowers in her hands and held them out to him. I got these for you Naruto-kun. Naruto took the pot. In it were a group of small violet flowers, lavender flowers. Thanks Hinata, these could be useful. Hinata nodded. You're welcome, Naruto-kun, I usually grow them for my herbal tea. Really? You'll have to make me some sometime. I figured you'd use it in those salves of yours. These little guys can be pretty good for bringing down swelling, helping bug bites, and fixing burns too. Ino was amazed. I didn't know you knew anything about flowers, Naruto. The boy just grinned. I'm a man of many talents, Ino. Gardening is a hobby of mine and, oh crud, he smacked his forehead and looked back to Ino. Hey, Ino, you work at a flower shop, right? She nodded. Would you mind doing me a favor? At my apartment is a small window box. Would you mind taking care of it while I'm here? I guess I could, but I don't know where your place is. No problem. Naruto bit his thumb hard enough to draw blood, went through a few hand signs and brought his palm down on his lap, and in a puff of smoke a small orange toad appeared on the bed next to Taunton. Hey, Aniki, got any SNA? Whoa, what the hell happened to you? Gamakichi, worried about the bandages on his friend. I'll explain later. Kichi, I need you to show Ino where my place is so she can take care of my plants while I'm here. Ino, this is. Naruto looked up to see the blonde girl up against the far wall. What's wrong? BB Big F Frog. Gamakichi got a bit angry at this. Hey, I'm a toad, not a frog. Gamakichi, calm down, and Ino, it's alright, Kichi won't hurt you. He motioned her to the bed. When she was next to him, Ino, this is Gamakichi, the older son of Gamabunta, the toad boss. Gamakichi, this is Ino, Hinata, Anko, and Kurenai-sensei. Like I said, I need you to show Ino where I live so she can take care of my flowers. Feel free to grab a bag of chips while you're there, and get one for Tatsu too. Thanks, Aniki, but are you sure you're alright? Yes, I'm fine. You shouldn't be, you were damn close to dead. Everyone looked to the window to see Pakun and another dog, a medium-sized Doberman with a small sword on its back. Anko visibly tensed at the sight of one of Kakashi's summoned dogs. Pakun interrupted, Don't worry Anko, I am in no way here on Hataki's behalf. Naruto was a bit confused. Pakun seemed to just growl out Kakashi's name, and Anko and the other dogs seemed to scowl at his mention. Hey, is something wrong with Kakashi-sensei? Pakun his head to the side, you weren't told. Well, I guess Tsunade wanted to wait until you were recovered. He saw Naruto's expression become even more confused, as well as the younger girls. There's no real easy way to tell you this kid, but Hataki, left you for dead in the valley. Naruto's expression suddenly went south, but the pug continued, he summoned me and the others to find you and the Uchiha. When we got there, I tried to get him to help you, but he only went to help Sasuke. Luckily, Bull was close and we got you to Tsunade in time. Naruto was on the verge of tears. Anko and Kurenai were pissed beyond belief. Ino was shocked that a teacher could do such a thing, and Hinata, she had a blank look on her face except for a slight twitch in one eye, but her mind was going a mile a minute trying to think of every possible way she hurt the Jonin. Hinata was actually the first to speak, albeit in a cold, emotionless voice. Where is Kakashi now? Pakun was surprised at the bloodlust rolling of the young woman. Actually, he's a few floors up. When Tsunade and that Inuzuka woman found out, the woman beat the tar out of him, and Tsunade hit him with a super kick to the groin. The rage radiating from Hinata seemed to die down a bit. I think I should get going. I still have to get your plants before I can go home. Ino said, motioning for the toad to follow. Thanks again, Ino, and feel free to stop by again. Ba-chan said I will be here a few days and, no offense to Anko-chan, Ba-chan and Sum, but it's nice to have people my age visit, like you too. Ino was confused. Wait, wasn't Forehead here? No, she's probably waiting for Sasuke to make up. She can't be. Anbu won't let anyone in to see him, or I'd have him thinking he was a little pigtailed girl for getting my teammates hurt. She sighed and went out the door, but stopped just before closing it. Hey, Naruto, good job. And she closed the door. Where the hell are you, Sakura? Sakura Haruno was at training ground 7, in front of the same log her teammate had been tied to, as the sun started to set. She had finally stopped crying after her experience with the snake Jonin and had been thinking about what she had been told. She had seen Naruto picked on at school, but she didn't see how that could be considered hell as Anko had put it. But then again, We never saw what things were like for him out of school. The voice in the back of her head had been bothering her more over the past few hours. I didn't see him out of school because he was annoying, always bugging me for dates. You mean the same way you bugged Sasuke? Sakura shook her head. No, that was different. You're right. Naruto didn't almost kill people when you turned him down. That had to be a lie. There's no way I could have done that. Well, you do seem to get that boost when you get angry. Sakura stood and faced the log, then looked at her own fist. But, there's no way. Sakura thought back to all that stuff that had always pissed her off about Naruto, but for some reason, she couldn't get mad about it. She'd see him bugging her for a date, but then she'd herself doing the same to Sasuke. She'd see him doing something stupid, but then she couldn't help but think of something nice or encouraging he had done for her. Tears fell from her eyes again. Was that Proctor right? Enko's voice drifted from her memory. You're the one who mindlessly abuses him. Shut up. You're a pathetic excuse for a kunoichi. Shut up. She clenched her eyes shut, trying to ignore the memories. You're the reason he almost died. Shut up. Sakura thrust her fist forward and heard the sound of wood breaking. She opened her eyes and saw, along with her slightly bloodied fist, that she had almost completely cracked the thick log in half. Seeing the destruction she had caused, Sakura dropped to her knees. Wah, but, is that what Naruto has been getting hit with all this time? Oh God. She started crying more than ever. Naruto, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Until you change your ways, I don't want to see you near him again. Sakura looked at her hand. It didn't feel broken or even hurt that badly, it just stung a bit. She then looked to the setting sun. I swear Naruto, I will get stronger, and I will make it up to you for what I've done. Kakashi groaned as he opened his eye. He could still feel the phantom pain despite the floating feeling from the painkillers. I feel like Sensei dropped Gamabunta on me. Oh, you're awake, Hataki-san, a neutral-sounding voice said. Kakashi rolled his eye to the right of his bed, where a female doctor stood. I had expected you to be out for a few days. How do you feel? Like the Hokage monument was dropped on me, the Cyclops said as he tried to test his own mobility. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Hataki-san, you were very banged up. Now I am afraid I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is that you have a fractured humerus, 4 broken ribs, minor internal bleeding, and a fractured pelvis, but you will eventually make an almost complete recovery, which is not bad considering who it was who beat you like this. What do you mean, almost? The doctor, Ryuko, kept her neutral emotionless expression, but on the inside she was laughing her off. She had idolized Tsunade since she was a little girl, but didn't quite have the physical drive to be a ninja, so instead she became a doctor to follow in her heroine's medical footsteps. And she knew if Kakashi had driven Tsunade to do something like this, then he deserved it, but she also couldn't turn the Cyclops away when he showed up at the hospital. Damn Hippocratic oath. But just because she couldn't ignore him, didn't mean she couldn't be happy he was hurt. She just couldn't let it show she was happy, which was pretty hard. Well, that is the bad news. You see, one of your injuries was much too severe for us to heal. At this point, Kakashi had grown very pale, and she had to really work to hide her grin. Your testicles were damaged beyond repair, so we were forced to amputate. Back in Naruto's room, after Ino closed the door, a few seconds passed before they all heard a very high-pitched voice scream, When the voice passed, they were all looking for the source. What in the world was that? Kurenai wondered aloud. Pakun seemed to almost grin when he answered, I think Kakashi just found out that Tsunade got him fixed. Enko grinned madly at this. Even Kurenai allowed herself a smirk at the new, but Naruto, never having had a pet, was still confused. If Obaa-chan healed him, then why is he screaming? Pakun sighed. No, Naruto, she didn't fix him up, she got him fixed. Naruto still wasn't getting it, so Enko decided to help. Naruto, What he's trying to say is that she crushed his danglies like grapes, the statement causing Naruto to unconsciously cross his legs, and also getting a giggle from someone else. That giggle shook Kurenai to her soul. She knew that kind of giggle, a dark, soul-chilling giggle, the kind Anko had after a rich, full day torturing prisoners. But it was worse, because she could even see Anko shiver a bit at the sound. And it was coming from Hinata. Hinata stopped giggling after a moment, and came out of her own little world of inflicting pain on a certain pair of Sharingan users to notice everyone staring at her. G. Gomen, IW was J just thinking of SS something funny, she stuttered out as she pulled her head into her jacket. Anko smiled. Now this is a kunoichi with some promise, but she's already Nai-chan's student. You're right, it is pretty funny. Mind you, though, he probably didn't use them anyway. I'd bet those books of his are the closest he's gotten to a real woman in years. Naruto, getting a bit uncomfortable with this conversation, decided to address the elephant in the room. Pakun, who's your friend? Pakun was about to speak, but the other dog cut him off in a distinctly feminine voice. My name is Katsumi, servant and assistant to Fenrir-sama, overboss of the canine contracts and head councilman of the 7 Su no Idai na Ukami no Zoku, 7 great wolf tribes. Naruto his head to the side. So what are you doing here? I have been sent to ascertain the situation with Hotake, and to make sure he is deserving of a full and permanent expulsion and banishment. Pakun explained. You see, Naruto, our contract is a bit different than most other contracts. We do have a master contract that would allow someone to summon any of us, but that hasn't been signed in a very long time, and we also have pack contracts that allow someone to summon any canine from one of the 7 specific tribes. These aren't signed very often. What people like Hotake sign are called personal contracts, that allow a ninja to summon only a set few canines and, at times, a contract writer if they feel someone is worth getting one of their own. Katsumi continued, however, as I am sure you learned with the toads, signing a contract doesn't mean those you summon will be automatically obedient pets. One must prove themselves to earn a summon's respect and assistance. Naruto nodded. Yeah, the first time I managed to summon an actual toad, it was Gamabunta, and I ended up having to stay on his head while he jumped all over the place to prove myself, and I passed out from exhaustion when it was over. The Doberman nodded. Yes, well, in the case of a personal contract like Hotake signed, one must simply prove themselves to the canines of the contract. For a pack contract, you have to do so for that whole tribe, and to sign the master contract, you would have to prove yourself worthy before Fenrir-sama himself. However, she continued, what I am here for is not the signing of contracts, but their nullification. It is simple enough to void a personal contract. All that is needed is for the canines involved in it must simply agree to do so. But what Pakun seeks is not just the nullification, but banishment and expulsion, which is a very serious request among our kind that requires a meeting of the council. What Pakun wants is for Hotake and his apparently now non-existent descendants to be forever unable to sign any sort of contract with any of the tribes. And to do such a thing is a very grave undertaking, so I was sent on Fenrir-sama's behalf to see you, Uzumaki Naruto, both for the reasons of Hotake's banishment and because, after Pakun's descriptions of you, he has taken somewhat of an interest in you, and wishes me to verify a few things about you. What sort of things? Naruto asked cautiously, hoping that the sword-carrying canine wouldn't ask about the fox in front of Hinata. Is it true that you are the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune? Damn, no such luck. Naruto's eyes shot to Hinata, who looked confused. Anyo, Katsumi-san, what is a Jinchuriki? And I thought that KK Kyuubi was killed by the Yondaime. Kurenai and Anko looked to Naruto, who nodded solemnly, before Kurenai kneeled to be eye level with her student. Hinata, what you are about to learn is an S-class secret. Telling people who don't already know it without Naruto's permission is punishable by either life imprisonment or death. Do you understand this? Hinata was shaken, but nodded slowly. Kurenai looked to Naruto again, who simply started petting Taunton again, before she continued, what you were taught in the academy was a lie. when Yondaime-sama confronted Kyuubi, he was unable to win. So, instead, he used a combination of Fuin Jutsu to seal the fox inside a newborn baby, born that day of October 10th. You and the rest of your generation weren't told this because when the village learned of it, most called for the baby's execution, despite the fact he was barely a day old. After that, Sandaime-sama made a law that anyone who spoke of the child's condition would be punished severely, hoping that it would allow the child to have a normal life with those his own age. But that plan was shot to hell. Anko picked up. Old man Sandaime was way too trusting with those bastards. The adults hated the kid, called him names, beat him within an inch of his life, starved him, poisoned him, overcharged him for the most basic necessities, and their hatred tended to rub off on their brats, and the kid was unable to make any friends. The poor kid's life was hell, but he never let it show when others were around. He always smiled and took it, even though he didn't know why it was happening. Hinata was on the verge of tears when she looked at Naruto. It was, I am mean, NN Naruto K-kun, where YYU. Naruto waited a minute before nodding slowly. Before anyone knew it, she had run across the room, jumped in his bed and wrapped her arms around him, burying her face in his bandaged chest and crying. Taunton was barely able to jump out the way of being crushed between the teens. Hinata sobbed incoherently into the blonde's chest. Naruto, not knowing what else to do, returned her embrace, softly rubbing her back. It's okay, Hinata, he whispered. Katsumi bowed her head. I apologize, Uzumaki-san, I was unaware it was a secret. I understand, Katsumi, Naruto said, still holding Hinata. Taunton had jumped back onto the bed, and started nuzzling against the crying girl, trying to help comfort her. Was what she said about your treatment true? Hinata's sobs picked up a bit when he nodded. Then why do you stay? If you are treated so poorly, why do you put up with them? Naruto smiled sadly, looking to the older women, then to Hinata, because this is my home, and I have people here who are precious to me, people I want to protect, like Tsunade Ba-chan, Sakura-chan, Shizune-chan, Ayame-ne-chan, Iruka-sensei, and Tukio-jii-san. And some new ones like Sum-san, Enko-ne-chan, Ino and Hinata-chan. He didn't notice that along with her slowing sobs, she turned red at the suffix he had used. The Doberman seemed surprised. So to help a handful of loved ones, you'd subject yourself to hell like that? Naruto didn't even need to think about it. Of course, they're important to me, and I would do anything to keep them safe. To endure such torture simply to protect a few, this is indeed an interesting kit. Fenrir-sama, Katsumi smiled. Thank you, Uzumaki-san, I think that's all I need to know. And she disappeared in a puff of smoke. Pakun turned to the boy. I had better get going too, take care Naruto, and he disappeared the same way. With the dogs gone, Naruto turned his attention to the young woman who was hugging him. Are you feeling better, Hinata-chan? Hinata didn't answer. She had stopped crying and was enjoying the embrace she was sharing with the blonde, Hinata-chan. She shook herself from her fantasies, turning bright red. Hi, Naruto-kun. Hey, are you alright? You look like you're running a fever. He placed his hand on her forehead, at which point steam almost seemed to shoot from her ears as she fainted. Hinata-chan. Hinata, are you okay? Enko had to fight back a laugh. She's fine, she just fainted. Naruto sighed with relief. Maybe she should wait until Ba-chan gets back so she can get a checkup. Whatever's wrong with her, I'd hate for Hinata to pass out on a mission and get hurt. Enko just stared in astonishment. He can't possibly be that dense, can he? Naruto, can I ask you a question? He looked up from the unconscious girl. Do you know if she passes out around anybody else? Naruto shook his head. Does she, Nai-chan? I was hoping Hinata would come out with this herself. Oh well, Kurenai sighed. No, she only faints around Naruto. They saw Naruto begin to think. He looked to Hinata, then to Anko, then Kurenai, then back to Hinata. Come on, kid, figure it out, Anko thought. After a moment, Naruto spoke in an almost fearful tone. Kurenai-sensei is Hinata, afraid of me. Both Jonin face planted. Anko snapped. Damn it Gaki, she loves you. Naruto seemed to think for a few seconds. Then he passed out. Tsunade arrived in the council chamber just in time to start the meeting. In attendance were the advisors, Danzo, clan heads of the Sarutobi, Inuzuka, Hyuga, Yamanaka, Nara, Akamichi, Aburame and Kurama clans, as well as representatives of a couple lesser clans, the civilian part of the council, which was made up of a few well-off merchants, and finally Tsunade in her capacity as both Hokage and last member of the Senju clan. Thank you all for coming today, Koharu said. We have convened the council today for the purpose of determining the punishment to be handed down to Uchiha Sasuke. For those of you who do not know, a few days ago, Genin Haruno Sakura saw Uchiha Sasuke as he left to defect to Otogakure, with the assistance of 4 Jonin-level Oto Nin, and she was rendered unconscious by Uchiha. A few hours later, when this news was reported, a retrieval team was sent out, headed by Chunin Nara Shikamaru. As the retrieval team attempted to close in on the target, the enemy was engaged by Tokubetsu Jonin Rado Namiyashi and Genma Shiranui, both of whom were defeated, but survived. Shortly afterwards, as the enemy rested from the battle, the retrieval team caught up with the target, but were captured by a chakra-draining earth jutsu. The Oto Nin who enacted this jutsu stayed to finish the job as the others continued. The retrieval team was able to escape the jutsu, and continued ahead as Genin Akamichi Choji chose to continue fighting the opponent. Genin Akamichi won, but was left in critical condition from use of his family food pills. Choza Akamichi looked to the ground, thankful his son was able to survive what should have been a death sentence. The rest of the team caught up with the target, and used a henge of the fallen Oto Nin to attempt to fool the others, but were found out due to an unknown personality quirk of the fallen Nin. Again, one Oto Nin stayed behind to fight as the others continued. This one specialized in the use of a chakra-based spider thread and a spider summon. This enemy was fought by Genin Hyuga Neji, whose gentle fist style was thought to be best to combat this enemy. Genin Hyuga was also victorious, but left in critical condition from a projectile hole in his torso. His injuries were thought to be second most severe among the retrieval team. Again, the remains of the team caught up with the enemy. Genin Inuzuka Kiba was engaged in battle against one of the Oto Nin. After the two of them fell into a ravine, Genin Inuzuka was assisted in his victory by Subaku no Kankuro. Nara Shikamaru was likewise helped to victory by Subaku no Tamari. Their opponent survived, with severe injuries to the lower half of her body, but was collected by Anbu and has been interrogated, and is currently recovering until she can be imprisoned, but she poses a minimal flight risk due to her injuries. Genin Uzumaki Naruto continued the pursuit of another Oto Nin who had just arrived. When Genin Uzumaki engaged the final Oto Nin, Uchiha Sasuke continued towards the border. Genin Uzumaki's opponent was then engaged in combat by Genin Rock Lee, who had just arrived, as Uzumaki went after Uchiha. Genin Rock Lee was helped to victory by Subaku no Gaara. We have no official report on the battle between Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke, as the former was so egregiously injured that he has been unconscious since, and the latter has been kept unconscious to await punishment for his crimes, but both were found unconscious in the Valley of the End, and were returned to the village. The aged Kunoichi waved a hand to an Anbu, who began to pass out papers. What you are being given is a copy of the full report, minus the statement of Genin Uzumaki, for the aforementioned reasons. Pardon, Koharu-san, a civilian member spoke after a quick glance at the documents. There's a mention of a barrel of some sort that contained Uchiha Sasuke. I see no reason we should punish him if he was kidnapped like that. Inoichi answered with a small scowl. I was the one who interrogated the captured sound Kunoichi, and according to her memories, the container is part of a ritual used to allow a curse mark to advance to a second stage. The curse seals administered by Orochimaru, apparently, have a second form that increases the power of the afflicted, but it warps their form into some sort of monstrosity, and the side effects when it recedes are painful. Aside from that, The ritual is needed because when the mark grows to the next stage, it tends to kill the ninja. Another civilian spoke up. Then Sasuke's life was at risk. Can we really blame a child like him for fearing for his life? Would you bastards read the damn report before you ask stupid questions? Soong growled. Besides the fact that the seal only reaches the next stage by taking a specific drug, when the ritual was over, the little bastard still tried to run to the snake trader. And don't refer to him like he's some helpless baby, he's a leaf ninja and should be ready to die rather than betray the village. But he still left just to get power. I say we burn the punk to ashes, scatter them in some aseptic tank and be done with his bastard clan. Please, Soom-san, that is much too extreme, Homura said, trying to calm the feral woman. These are extenuating circumstances. The Sharingan is a valuable asset to the village, and we need Sasuke. He was simply misguided, and did something rash. I believe that if we show him that he can get strong here, Sasuke can become a strong and loyal leaf ninja. Until there is no more you can give him, the monotone voice of Shibi Aburame came. Uchiha-san's purpose is to kill his elder brother, as he has stated many times. He pursues that goal with no other care in mind, and is willing to do anything, including betray this village and kill his own teammate, to achieve it. You suggest we let this betrayal pass like nothing, and give him whatever he wants without punishment. His bugs beginning to buzz as he finished speaking. Of course not, Aburame-san, I simply mean that we should take certain things into account. I move that Uchiha Sasuke be put on probation. He will not be allowed to leave the village for a year, he will be constantly monitored, and financial restitutions will be paid to the injured nin from the Uchiha family accounts. Will all those in favor please raise your hands? The entire civilian council, Danzo, Homura and 3 of the lower clan representatives raised their hand. Homura nodded. It is decided at a vote of 17 to 11, Uchiha Sasuke is now on probation. You bastards are really gonna let the traitorous bastard off with a slap on the wrists like that? Soom roared. Calm yourself, Inuzuka, Danzo said in a tone that seemed to add, before I make you, bitch, we still have one more piece of business to attend to, the fate of Genin Uzumaki Naruto. To my knowledge, Uzumaki-san completed his mission quite well, considering the fact he and his team were against such overwhelming odds, Shibi stated. What is there to discuss? The medic team searching the area reported sensing the chakra of the Kyuubi as they closed in on the Valley of the End, and the residue of the chakra could be found there as well. Homura stated, I fear that the seal is weakening, and the boy will become a threat to the village, and move for the execution of Uzumaki Naruto. The shinobi on the council erupted in screams against the very idea as the civilians just smirked. Tsunade was yelling the loudest, are you senile? This outburst silenced the room. You want to reward him for a successful mission by killing him. One of the civilians made the mistake of answering, he's a threat to our village and is nothing but trouble, and it's high time we did away with the duh. The man was unable to finish the sentence as he was pinned to the ground by an angry Kuromaru. If you call that pup a demon again, the dog growled, I will tear out your throat and show it to your children. The man nodded and the hound returned to his partner's side. I believe an execution may be a bit overzealous. Danzo said, after all, what good is a dead weapon? I move that Genin Uzumaki Naruto be banished from Konohagakure until such a time that it can be shown that he is not a threat. In reality, Danzo planned to have the boy abducted by root members once he was a safe distance from the village. All those in favor please raise your hands. The results were nearly the same as before, except 2 of the lesser-known clan representatives were against it. Then it is decided, at a vote of 15 to 13, Uzumaki Naruto is to be banished from this village until he can prove he is no longer a threat to our village's security. He has the usual 7 days to get his affairs in order. Before anyone could react, Kaharu stood. I am ashamed of you, she said to everyone's surprise, especially Danzo and Homura, that you would continue to pamper a spoiled and traitorous brat as you throw that poor boy out of the village he loves, and away from the few who care about him. My former sensei and teammate must be spinning in their graves. The aged Kunoichi rose and left the now silent room, and almost to tears Hokage, and several clan heads trying to think of how they could help the child who would, in a week's time, be thrown from the only life he ever knew. No one even noticed a small, black chihuahua hiding in the shadows, as he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Far, far away, in a very, very large teepee, a group was meeting. Gathered around a small central fire, several dogs, wolves, jackals, even a couple raccoon dogs and foxes, were separated into 7 groups, sitting on large pillows and blankets, the colors of which were different for each of the 7 groups. The flap of the teepee opened as Katsumi entered, walked across the tent, and sat down in front of an enormous, gray-furred and battle-scarred wolf with armor strapped on his shoulders and a large sword on each side, who was lying opposite of the entrance. Katsumi bowed and whispered a few things that not even the other's canine's incredible hearing could detect before moving to the large wolf's side. The large wolf stood and spoke in a booming voice, "I thank you, those of the Council of 7, for answering my call so quickly. My purpose in calling you here is to deal with one of the most severe things we can do in respect to the humans we deal with, the permanent expulsion and banishment of a summoner, specifically one Hitachi Kakashi. This request was made by Pakun of the Plains tribe, and investigated by my personal assistant, Katsumi, originally of the Plains tribe. Before the reasons behind Pakun's request can be discussed, some background is needed." The large wolf nodded to the Doberman, who stepped to the center of the tent, next to the small fire. "Thank you, Fenrir-sama, and to you council members and your retainers, and I apologize if this seems long, but proper information is needed. I am here to tell you 2 stories of 2 very different young humans. This is needed to inform you of why Hitachi's actions have put him in such poor graces with those of his personal contract that they would ask for such an extreme action. The first story begins nearly 13 years ago at the human village of Kanahagakure, when the Biju, the Kyuubi no Kitsune, attacked. The leader of the village at the time, Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage, rode atop the boss toad Gamabunta to combat the fox, and used a combination of seals, at the cost of his own life, to lock the great beast away within a newborn human pup, one Uzumaki Naruto. Namikaze's wish, apparently, was for the child to be seen as a hero for restraining the fox from destroying the village, but that did not come to be. As soon as those of the village learned what had happened, many called for the pup's death, and a few attempted to perform the deed themselves, but were stopped by ninja at the command of Sarutobi Hiruzen, who had retaken his place as Hokage at the death of his successor. Sarutobi put in place a law that none were allowed, on pain of death, to speak of the boy's burden, apparently in hopes that those who did not know of it, more specifically those of the boy's age, would be good to him, but that did not happen. As the pup grew, he was pushed towards death many times, though poisonings, beatings, failed assassinations and malnutrition, and was mentally abused with insults, abandonment and hateful treatment by the adults. And, as we know with humans, monkey see, monkey do. The children began to mistreat the boy as their parents had, and with none of the repercussions they would have with another child. Uzumaki-san grew up most of his life alone, with no pack to truly call his own, and any attempt to adopt him was thwarted by those who hated him. Even though he was so hated, the boy pushed through and never let them see the hate get to him. The leader of the Tundra tribe, a Saint Bernard named Marana, whose maternal instincts were flaring to life with a vengeance, spoke, "Where were Uzumaki-kun's parents for all this? Did they abandon their own pup because of such stupidity?" Katsumi shook her head. "As far as I was able to find from searching the records, the only other Uzumaki to have lived in the village, one Uzumaki Kashina, passed away during the attack. I suspect it could have been complication from childbirth. As for the father, I was unable to find the official copy of the birth certificate, only redacted copies with the paternal name blocked out, and do not know who the father is. I would guess that this means that the father was a ninja of high standing, who is either dead or on a long-lasting, undercover mission. But if I may offer my opinion," she asked to her boss, who nodded, "I hope this man is dead, or I will kill him myself for abandoning his son to those beasts, even if it cost me my position in the tribe, or even my own life. This statement shocked all those in attendance, with the exception of Fenrir, who was proud of his right hand's words, since he had been told her thoughts on the human boy. I met Uzumaki-san, and believe him to be one of the kindest and purest hearts I have met, canine, human or otherwise. What kept the boy in the village, then? Inquired the Savannah tribe leader. He was a large black-backed jackal who was named of Gwafi. If he was treated so poorly, then surely at some point in 13 years, he must have had a chance to get away. It might have been possible, Katsumi admitted, and I asked him myself why he stayed loyal to the village. He said it was because that village is his home, and he wishes to protect the few who do care for him, no matter what he has to go through to do so. Surprise was evident on many muzzled faces across the room, such an answer from a human youth, and loyalty to a village that itself had all but abandoned him. Many of the tribal leaders and their retainers were not sure they would be able to give that answer after that sort of life. I think we can admire the Uzumaki pup's loyalty later, Fenrir said. I believe you have another story to tell, Katsumi. Yes, Fenrir-sama, this story is likely to be shorter. A few years ago, there was a clan known as the Uchiha. Within Konoha, the leader of that clan, Uchiha Fugaku, had two sons. The elder son, Uchiha Itachi, was considered a prodigy. He became a chunin at the age of 10 and an Anbu captain at the age of 13. The younger son, Uchiha Sasuke, lived in his brother's shadow, and wanted to surpass him. Then, about 5 years ago, Uchiha Itachi attacked and killed his entire clan, save for his younger brother, before leaving the village. Over the following years, Uchiha Sasuke was spoiled to keep him happy and loyal to the village. As the last true Uchiha, the village wanted to keep him there for the power they felt the Sharingan represented, but he simply sought the power needed to kill his older brother and nothing else, no matter the cost. And this brings us to the reason behind Pakun-san's request, which has been backed by Fenrir-sama. She turned to a darker part of the tent, from which the pug stepped into the firelight. I think it would be best for him to explain. Pakun took his place in the center of the council. A few days ago, Uchiha Sasuke attempted to defect from the village to join a known enemy known as Orochimaru, in order to gain the power needed to kill Itachi. A few in the room growled. If there was any constant between the tribes, it was a fierce belief in loyalty above all things. He was assisted by 4 enemy nin. A retrieval team, which included Naruto, was sent out to return Sasuke to the village. I won't bore you with the extensive details on the mission, but it ended with Naruto and Sasuke fighting at a place called the Valley of the End. Hatake summoned me and the others when he found out and had us fan out to find them. I was with Hatake when we found the boys. Both were unconscious, but I saw a much larger amount of blood coming out of Naruto, and found he had a large hole in his gut, one that the Kyuubi didn't even seem able to heal. When I tried to get Hatake to help the kid, he was already getting ready to leave with the Uchiha, not even glancing to check on Naruto. He left him to die. The room suddenly got noticeably colder. The center fire even started to visibly die down, pure hatred rolling off nearly everyone in the room. Only those more in control of themselves were able to rein in their emotion, but just barely. Gwafi had another question. Uzumaki had the power of the fox behind him. Is the Uchiha really that strong? Pakun shook his head. Although I wasn't there as they fought, I believe he used a curse seal given to him by Orochimaru that allowed him to draw on an unnatural power. But still, the snake is able to make someone strong enough to combat the Kyuubi's power. A bat-eared fox behind Fenrir stepped forward. If I may, Fenrir-sama, the wolf nodded. To answer your question, Gwafi-sama, besides the fact that I believe the boy's body can't yet handle the full power of the Kyuubi, I was asked by Katsumi Taiko to keep guard outside of Uzumaki-san's window, and I heard him tell his guard that he had held back to keep from killing the Uchiha, because of a promise he made to someone called Sakura to bring the traitor back to the village. Pakun nodded. That sounds possible. Naruto cares about Sakura. and he even fought against the fully manifested Ikibi no Tanuki and won to save her life in the invasion a few months ago. Mirana seemed to be the angriest at that moment. She had never even met the pup, but after what she had heard of the boy, she felt the strong need to tear out the Uchiha's throat, and let her tribe loose on any others who threatened him. Fenrir-sama, I would like to ask to be allowed permission to find this Uchiha and show him the error of his ways, she said that in a voice so calm that it sent a shiver up even the old wolf's spine. He had seen her like this only once before, when a lone bear had wandered onto her tribe's land and attacked a pup. The pup lived, but had lost a hind leg. The bear was not so lucky. Mirana had found him first, and by the time the others in her party had caught up, all that was left of the bear was a bit of fur, a few bones and a bloody smear in the snow. Mirana was found shortly after washing off in a nearby hot spring. As interesting as that would be, Mirana, I am afraid that I won't allow that for now. As much as I want to do the same, such an act would probably result in a war with that village. I don't mind the thought of tearing out a few of those dumb animals' hearts. I think it would put us against Uzumaki, and I don't think you want to have to hurt him, do you? Unfortunately, sir, that won't be a problem. A small pitch-black chihuahua entered the room. Katsumi turned to the small dog. Usha, report. The dog bowed. Katsumi Taiko, as you requested, I hid away in the Konoha village council room. The civilian council, a few of the shinobi and 2 of the elders, were able to overrule the Hokage and the majority of the clan heads. The fools have put the Uchiha on probation. He is not allowed to leave the village for a year and has to pay monetary restitutions to the families of those injured by his treason, but they still plan on training him to keep him happy. On the other hand, she sighed, they have decided that, after a week to get his affairs in order, Uzumaki Naruto is to be banished from the village. Everyone in attendance felt a sudden extreme pressure on their chest as the elder wolf's anger finally got the better of him. Several retainers passed out from it, but Mirana seemed to match it with her own. When he got back to himself, the old wolf growled to the miniature pooch, on what grounds do they banish such a pup? Usha took a moment to recover before answering. They claim his use of the Kyuubi's power is a sign of the seal weakening, and he is becoming a danger to the village. They were going to execute him, but one elder advised against it. I suspect he has plans for his own benefit. Fenrir was deep in thought for a few moments. Even with this new development, we will not attack Konoha yet. I think we will wait until Uzumaki is banished, and get his opinion. If the pup has no problem with the attack, then I will allow your tribe its pound of flesh, Mirana, but if he asks us not to, we will not. Now before we adjourn this meeting, are there any against the permanent expulsion and banishment of Hitaki Kakashi and his line? There was none. As the rest of the council left, Mirana approached her leader. Fenrir-sama, I would like to request to be with the group that will meet with Uzumaki-kun. I know you have always been a protective mother, Mirana, but you seem awfully protective of this human pup you have never met. I know, Fenrir-sama, she bowed her head a bit, I don't know what it is, but I feel a strange pull to him. I feel like I need to protect him like my own pup. The large wolf chuckled. I understand, Mirana, I admit I am rather interested in this kid as well. I will allow it if you promise not to attack anyone without my permission. Are we clear? Yes, Fenrir-sama. So, Ino said, your dad is the boss of all the toad summons. They had been walking, or hopping for Gamakichi, for a while. The girl had explained what she knew for certain about the retrieval mission, and that had left Gamakichi quietly fuming, but Ino felt the need to make some conversation when she started to notice that the neighborhood they were moving into wasn't the kind she wouldn't like to be in after dark. Yup, pretty much. But he still listens to Ma and Pa. He listens to himself. No, Ma and Pa Toad are the elders of the mountain, everyone calls that, and even Pops listens to them. The orange toad explained as he led the girl up some stairs and to a door. Ino realized something. Oh crap, we don't have the key. No worries, sis. Gamakichi looked like he was focusing for a moment, then extended his tongue out of his mouth. A key stuck to the end of it. here ya go. Ino gingerly picked the key off the tongue and looked at it for a moment. Why did you swallow a key to Naruto's apartment? She asked as she opened the door, looking for the window box. I didn't exactly swallow it. Some of us toads can use a time, space type of jutsu to use our bodies as a sort of pocket world to store stuff. I know this guy who is smaller than me, but he could probably fit a small house in him. And Aniki gave all of us copies of the key so we would feel welcome in his home. What do you mean, all of us? The blonde asked when she finally found the plants. It was a small assortment, nothing exotic, but they seemed well taken care of. Me, my brother and the other toads my age, sometimes when he got bored, Aniki would summon me and Tatsu, sometimes to train, sometimes to play, and although he probably won't admit it, sometimes when he got lonely we would just hang out. One day, when the three of us were messing around, I asked him to try summoning some more toads. Some of my friends back home heard me and Tatsu talking with Pops about Aniki, and they wanted to meet him. Naruto is friends with almost every toad my age back home, but he has to be careful around Pakwa. He said with a snicker as he leapt on a counter and grabbed a couple bags of chips. Ino was confused. Why, who's Pakwa? The toad started laughing a bit before explaining. Pakwa is this girl back home who has a crush on Naruto. Ino had a bit of a laugh as she left and locked the door before tossing the key to the toad, who snapped it out of the air like a fly. They continued on their way back in silence for a while, but when she saw where they would have to split for her to head home and he to the hospital, Ino asked, he means a lot to you toads, doesn't he? Of course, he is like family to me, Tatsu and Pops, and most everyone else back home. I've even heard Ma and Pa tellin' Pops that they want to meet him too. He seems a bit sad sometimes, but he's a lot of fun too. Sad? Anytime I see him, he's yelling and smiling like an idiot, without a care in the world. The orange toad stopped, and Ino after. Let me ask you something, sis, have you ever noticed some of the older people in your village act strange around Aniki? Some who seem like they don't like him for any good reason. Not really, I didn't really spend much time with him when we were younger. Did Naruto do something? His pranks didn't seem that serious. The toad shook his head, then continued on his way. No, he didn't do anything. They dislike him for something he didn't do and had no control over. Try going around as him someday and you'll see what I mean. It took me a while to notice the way people looked at him, but when I asked Pops, he told me after swearing me to secrecy. He said it is Naruto's secret to share, so I can't tell you if you don't know. But I can say this, many hate him for things that happened when he was born, but, he said with a sigh, anywhere else, Aniki would be a hero for some of the things he has done in the last year. He always seems to pull a victory out of nowhere at the last minute, like when he helped save my butt from that sand freak. Sand freak? You mean Gaara, the redhead with the gourd on his back? He nodded in mid-hop. I always thought Sasuke did that. Kichi snorted. When Aniki summoned me, that guy was almost down for the count. It was Naruto, with some help from Pops, who kicked Sand Boys. Well, I better get these home before my parents wonder where I am. Thanks for your help, Gamakichi. No prob, sis. Ino started to walk away when he added, you know, Aniki is lucky to have a girlfriend like you. Then he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Ino was stunned for a moment, and then she yelled, Naruto isn't my boyfriend. But the entire way home her mind was plagued by the possibilities, and images of a blonde wedding. She couldn't help but think, it feels weird, but it feels right. Naruto started to come to, and found he was staring into a pair of black eyes. Oink. Ah. Naruto bolted up, almost catapulting the small pig out of the bed, but she was caught by Kurenai, who was standing at the foot of the bed with a grinning Anko and a bright red Hinata. You alright, Gaki? You were out for almost 15 minutes. Ah, what happened? I remember Hinata-chan fainted, and then Anko-chan said, Naruto. Then he turned red enough to match his admirer as her turn to face her. Do you really love me, Hinata? Hinata gulped and took a deep breath. Hi, Naruto-kun, I have for a while now. When I was little, after my mother P passed, my father started to become cold and distant. He started to push me hard to be strong, but I kept falling short of his expectations, and he became more distant, and I was almost ready to give up, but whenever I was, would always seem to find you. You were always pushing yourself, always trying and never giving up, no matter what happened to you. I wanted to be like you, to chase after you, then, I just wanted to walk with you, to be with you. Your smile, your spirit, they changed my life, they saved me. She walked to his side and took his hand in hers. I love you, Naruto-kun. Naruto's eyes watered up a bit. I really don't know what to say, Hinata-chan. Nobody ever said anything like that before. No one has ever said they love me. I'm not even entirely sure it means, or what love is. I am not sure I can give you an honest response. I know I care about you like I do Sakura-chan and Anko-chan, but I don't know if I feel love. He looked up to see a sad look on the girl's face and panicked a bit. Seeing her like that made him hurt as well. I'm not saying I don't, Hinata-chan, I just need some time to think. Please, this is all new to me. The heiress's expression brightened a little. I think I understand, Naruto-kun, take your time. I need to get home before dark. Would you mind if I come back tomorrow? Naruto cracked a smile. Please, we can talk some more. I just realized. He took up a thoughtful expression. You seem to know a lot about me, but I don't know much about you. It's like you've followed me around or something, but I don't think you would do something like that. Hinata inwardly breathed a sigh of relief. Then will be back tomorrow afternoon. Sleep well, Naruto-kun. And she left with her sensei. Naruto looked outside to see the sun almost completely below the horizon. Letting out a small yawn, he laid back and prepared for sleep when he felt a rustle in the bed, and the mattress sink a bit beside him. He opened his eyes to find Anko had crawled in with him and laid down as well, her eyes closed. Anko-chan, what are you doing? I still have to guard you through the night, and I ain't sleeping in a chair, or I'll wake up stiff as a board. Besides, she wrapped her arms around him, it is easier to protect you like this. Now before you say anything, I am not moving, so just go to sleep before I inject you with a sedative. The threat standing, Naruto shut his mouth, but noted as he fell asleep, this is kinda nice. Tenten was picking up and resealing her weapons as night closed in. Normally she would have stopped training long ago, but with both of her teammates in the hospital, she wasn't worn out as quickly. Tenten-senpai. Tenten looked up to see the Haruno girl. The brunette wasn't sure how to feel about Sakura. One of her teammates was the reason Tentens were in the hospital. On the other hand, the girl's blonde teammate was not only the reason the retrieval succeeded, but the reason that Lee could be a ninja at all since he brought Tenten's idol, Tsunade, back to the village. And, apparently, the Godime was close to the cute blonde. Wait. Cute. Where the hell did that come from? Is something wrong, Sakura? Tenten knew something was up. It looked like the pinkett had been crying, and there was some blood drying on her hand. Sakura shook her head. No, I'm fine, I just wanted to ask you something. I know with Lee and Neji in the hospital, you won't really have any missions for a little while, right? The bun-haired girl nodded. Well, I've been thinking a bit, and I am not as strong as I should have been. If I was stronger, Naruto might not have gotten hurt, and I might have been able to stop Sasuke. I just wanted to ask for your help. Would you help me with weapons training? Tenten surveyed the other kunoichi for a few moments. She always supported a kunoichi who wanted to get stronger, and the pink-haired girl seemed more worried about the blonde teammate than the traitor. Have you thought of what weapon? Sakura looked at her quizzically. Even I know you can't rely on shuriken and kunai for everything. She pulled out a blank scroll and wrote for a few minutes, before rolling it up and handing it to Sakura. This is a list of melee weapons I am at least proficient with. Look it over tonight and decide which you want to start with. Be here at 6 in the morning, and don't be late. If you are, I will use you for target practice, understood? Sakura nodded vigorously. Thank you, Tenten-senpai. A kunai whizzed by her head, taking off a few hairs before hitting a tree behind her. That will be sensei from now on, okay. Sakura nodded. Now go home and get some rest, you'll need it for tomorrow. And the pair parted ways, Tenten excited to have her first student, and Sakura glad to have someone who might actually teach her something seriously. Inoichi returned home to find his daughter quietly tending to a planter he hadn't seen before, a distant look on her face. Ino looked up to her father. Hey, Daddy, rough day. More than you know, princess. What are you doing? Oh, this is Naruto's, apparently he likes gardening too, and when I saw him in the hospital, he asked me to take care of them for him. She saw her father flinch a bit at Naruto's mention. Is something wrong? Did something happen? Princess, is Naruto a friend of yours? Ino was a bit confused by the question. Well, I never really cared much about him before, but after all that's happened, I kinda want to get to know him better. He seems like a nice guy, and Choji and Shikamaru might have died on that mission without him. I hear he almost did die to make the mission succeed. I guess I never noticed it when I was chasing Sasuke, but he's not as bad as a lot of people seem to think, just loud and annoying sometimes, and I know I can be as loud as he can. Ino had realized since splitting off from Gamakichi, a lot of people had treated Naruto like something was wrong, and she decided to try the Toad's suggestion on the way home. She was surprised at the treatment she received as Naruto. She could feel the glares of hate, she could hear whispers of monster and demon under people's breath. She had even had a couple of drunks start chasing her, throwing empty sake bottles at her until she got away. Does he go through that every day? Why do you ask, Daddy? The elder Yamanaka sighed and sat down. I am afraid I have bad news then. In 7 days, Uzumaki Naruto is to be officially banished from the village. Ino exploded. What? His mission was a success, why the hell are they giving him the boot? What in the name of Kami would have them kick him out after all he's done? He beat Gaara. He beat Sasuke Tem. He beat the Hyuga prodigy. He brought Tsunade-sama back, and now they want to kick him to the curb. Yes, I understand your anger, and most of the clan heads, myself included, were against it, but the civilian council and a couple clan heads outnumbered us. They wouldn't even properly punish the Uchiha. He realized too late what effect this last slip might have on his daughter. Ino didn't yell, she didn't even raise her voice at this, she spoke in a deathly calm voice, one that seemed to suck the heat out of the room. What do you mean, properly punish? What did or didn't they do? Inoichi sighed. There was now no way to stop the coming storm. 2 of the elders, as well as the civilian council and a few clan heads, in their infinite wisdom, decided to preserve the Sharingan in the village. They want to keep the Uchiha happy and will put him on probation. He won't be able to leave the village for a year, and during that time they plan to train him to keep him happy. Ino's explosion was so great that the house seemed to shake before she even opened her mouth. What the is wrong with them? They boot out possibly the most loyal ninja ever, but they let a traitor get away with a slap on the wrists and a "don't do it again," before they continue to spoil the bastard rotten. Ino, calm down. Ino was quieted by her father. Yes, I know it's wrong. Yes, I know Naruto is a good kid, but because of certain events, not everyone sees him in that light. Ino thought back to what the orange toad had said and what she had gone though earlier. Daddy, why do they hate Naruto so much? On my way home, I used a henge to look like him, and the people, they were, tears welled up in her eyes. Does he really have to live through that every day? Why? How does he keep smiling like that? Why is he even here if that is how they treat him? Inoichi hugged his daughter. Princess, I can't tell you why they hate him, because that is not my secret to share, so you have to ask Naruto before he leaves. And yes, he does go through things like that almost every day, but I can only guess why he has stayed so loyal, and smiled so much. Naruto hasn't had many friends in his life, so he is very protective of those he does have. He wouldn't want them to worry about him, so he smiles, and he wouldn't want them to get hurt, so he stays here to protect them. He pulled away and looked in his daughter's eyes. Do you think you are one of those he wants to protect? Ino thought for a moment. I don't know, Daddy. I was mean to him a lot when we were little, but I want to be. I want to help him, to protect him, too, to be his friend, and maybe more. Then use this week well, try to be his friend. There is nothing we can do about his banishment at the moment, but he has the backing of almost every clan head, one of the elders, and the Hokage herself. We will find a way to help him. And the Hokage is close to him, she won't just abandon him. I wouldn't be surprised if she was thinking of a way to get him out of this right now. Tsunade was in a bad way, a seriously bad way. One could tell it was bad because Shizune was actually giving her sake. Tsunade didn't know what emotion to feel anymore, anger at the council for banishing one of the few people she had left, or at the last Uchiha for starting all this, or sorrow at the idea of what the village would be like without the little ball of energy, or how the boy would feel when he found out. Shizune wasn't much better. She was actually contemplating using her poison gases on the civilian council when a knock came to the office door. Kaharu entered. I am sorry to disturb you on such a sad occasion, Tsunade. Tsunade looked red-faced at the elder. What do you want and what are you up to? Tsunade had been confused at this elder's actions in the meeting. I came to ask if you have had a chance to inform Uzumaki of his fate. The bottle in the Sanin's hand shattered. He just woke up before I left for the council meeting, his mission a success, a new friend keeping an eye on him and keeping him company, and the knowledge that he has more than he thought. I figured I would let him have at least one night of peaceful sleep before I have to destroy his world around him. Kaharu nodded. I understand. I would like to come with you tomorrow when you do. Once again, why? According to Sensei's diary, you usually went against Naruto. What are you up to, you old hag? I can fully understand your disbelief. You will understand tomorrow. But he did something just before the Chunin exams. He saved something of mine, something more precious to me than my own life, even at the risk of his own. I will be at the hospital at about 10 tomorrow morning. She moved towards the door and opened it to reveal Sum about to knock, before she turned to face her Hokage. For what it is worth, Tsunade, I am truly sorry for everything that has happened. And the aged Kunoichi left, thinking in the hall, I guess I will have to tell her tonight. The old woman sighed. I just know she's going to cry her little heart out. Back in the office, Tsunade turned to the Inuzuka head. What can I do for you, Sum? I know you said you want Naruto-kun to rest for a few days, but I would like to request he be brought to the Inuzuka compound tomorrow afternoon, the woman said with a respectful bow. May I ask what this visit is for? You aren't actually planning on having Naruto marry your daughter so soon, are you? The blonde asked with a raised eyebrow. No, Tsunade-sama, I wish to give him a gift. I don't wish to speak of it outside of the compound, but it is something my clan does not give out lightly, and he is free to turn it down, but it will be explained when you arrive with him. The Hokage studied the feral woman for a moment. I will try to bring him by, but I will send a message if he is unable to come. Thank you, Hokage-sama. And with that, Sum left, and Tsunade looked out over the village under the moonlight. How are we going to tell him, Tsunade-sama? The assistant asked, knowing this could very well break the boy. I don't know, Shizune, but I can't just leave him to wander alone out there, at least when I was traveling. I had you with me, but those bastards think they can just push me into forcing him out. They forget, if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here. The blonde thought for a minute, then suddenly had a grin on her face that scared her assistant a little. Shizune, get me some blank scrolls, some more ink, the village financial statements, and coffee, lots of coffee. I have work to do. And find Jiraiya and tell him to get his down here, now. Hinata was in her room, about ready for bed. This had turned out to be a good day. She had finally told Naruto how she felt, even though his response wasn't exactly what she would have wished for. He didn't turn her down. And, given what she just learned about him, it was an answer she could understand. She was also glad that he had not only wanted to see her tomorrow, but he hadn't realized anything about her little, Naruto watching, trips. A knock came from her door. Hinata-sama, your father requests your presence in his study. Thank you. Hinata put on a kimono and made her way to her father's study and knocked lightly on the door. Sama, you asked to see me? Yes, Hinata, come in. Hinata walked in and sat herself on a cushion in front of her father's desk as he poured a cup of tea before passing it to her. Drink, I am afraid we have much to talk about. Hinata accepted the glass, and took a sip as her father spoke again. I understand you have taken a liking to this Uzumaki Naruto. Hinata almost inhaled some of the tea and started sputtering and coughing before she was able to answer. What do you mean Sama? Hiyashi almost smirked at his daughter's reaction, which was answer enough for him. Do not worry, my daughter, I have no issue with young Uzumaki. I will admit until a few months ago I had showed no favor towards him. But I heard that he had motivated you to fight your cousin, and saw personally how he fought your cousin, the last piece of my late brother I have left, and changed him for the better. I have never truly met the boy, but he has already helped change my life. He reminds me of someone I knew who died several years ago, because he keeps becoming stronger, and those around him become stronger in some way as well. So I would fully support any relationship you pursue with him, and believe such a relationship would eventually bring nothing but honor to our clan. His expression soured, but these facts make it even more difficult to tell you this. It was decided earlier today by majority vote of the council, that he be banished after a 1-week suspension of the sentence for him to get his affairs in order. Hinata was shocked by the news, and dropped tea glass, which shattered spilling tea all over. The poor girl was in tears. She finally tells him and his is about to be banished. It's because of Kyuubi, isn't it father? Hiyashi was shocked, but visibly he just an eyebrow. How do you know of the fox? Naruto-kun told me about it today when a summoned dog mentioned it without knowing it was a secret. A summoned dog? You mean Hataki's dog? He asked, fully aware of the Jonin's actions and where they landed him in respect to the Inuzuka clan, the Hokage, and many other clans when they found out. His daughter shook her head, and explained about the canine's arrival, and when Katsumi-san asked about the Kyuubi in front of me, Anko-san and Kurenai-sensei told me the truth, with Naruto-kun's permission. Father, is there nothing we can do to help him? At the moment, I am afraid not, at least not to keep him in the village. But, I suspect Lady Hokage is coming up with something, and from her expression, Inuzuka-san is up to something as well. I have been trying to think of how I could help the boy without worrying about the Hyuga Council's interference. Go, rest Hinata, and I am sorry. Hinata nodded and returned to her room, and eventually fell into a fitful sleep.